there have been reports from Bild, Christian Falk, that Bayern Munich are looking at Gabriel Martinelli after seemingly losing out on Nico Williams to Barcelona. And Martinelli is a player that he had that really good 22-23 season, scored 15 goals in the top flight. He's not really hit the heights since, but he's a player who, is usually available, can produce that moment of magic sometimes, and also his defensive work rate, is, always exceptional.
Mm.
And we've spoken as well, and Arteta's spoken a lot about the need for squad depth and, making sure that they don't repeat the same mistakes they did last summer. So, in your eyes, would selling Martinelli sort of go against what Arsenal were trying to do in this summer market?
Yeah, I don't see why you'd be selling Gabriel Martinelli. It just doesn't make much sense to me at all. Even if another left winger comes in, I think you keep him. I think where Arsenal have fallen short is their squad depth at times, especially in attack. I think Martinelli, you can play on the left, you can play on the right, you can play as a striker if needs be. I just wouldn't be selling. I wouldn't be selling Trossard either. I'd be keeping both of them, and I'd be bringing in another attacker and just giving Mikel as many options as he can to rotate. And those are two players we know he really, really trusts. And the thing is with Arteta, when he doesn't trust a player, he will not use them. But we know he trusts those two; he will use them. So if you can bring another player in, and have them in the squad, then he'll have no problem. You would think rotating, giving someone a rest on one day, starting Martinelli. If you sign a Rodrigo, for example, you can play Rodrigo, then you can rest him, play Martinelli. You can play Martinelli out on the right, give Saka a rest. That's what you want. You want as many options as you possibly can to be able to change games and give players breathers. So I just don't, unless a huge offer came in, and I'm talking a huge offer, I just don't see why you would sell Martinelli. I think he's really underrated as well. I think he gets unfair flack an awful lot of time. He hasn't been able to repeat what he did in obviously 22-23, but he's had a huge amount of change on the left-hand side. And he's still, when you look at his numbers, how they stack up to some of the players that Arsenal are being linked with, and a lot of fans sort of want to see arrive at the club, they're good. They stack up against them. So he's not had a dreadful couple of years by any means. He hasn't really kicked on from 22-23, but he's still a very good player with lots to offer. So no, unless you're getting a silly offer come in, I would not be selling Gabriel Martinelli at all.
Yeah, I think a silly offer is the right way to describe it because, I mean, he's got 2 years on his contract, but there is the option to extend by
Mm.
another 12 months. So Arsenal, they're under no pressure to sell at all. Of course, you would expect they'd make a very healthy profit if they did choose to sell, but from a sporting point of view, arguably makes little sense. In terms of what that huge offer or that silly offer would be in your eyes, maybe, can you just putting you on the spot, can you sort of pluck a figure from the top of your head? Maybe like, I don't know, 60, 70 million or maybe even more. Would that be needed to actually, to be considerable in your eyes?
I mean, I don't really know. I mean, what's the silly offer in football nowadays? It's mad because I don't know, sort of maybe 70 million, something like that would I'd entertain it. I mean, I've seen 50 million mentioned, and that's just not enough for me. It's just absolutely not enough for me. If Brian Mbuemo's going for, and I know he scored a lot of goals last season, but players, like Brian Mbuemo are going for 60, 70 million pounds, and I'd absolutely imagine that's what Gabriel Martinelli should be. He's still young. Um, he's shown he can score at Champions League level and Premier League level at will. He's an absolute team player. His defensive capabilities are unbelievable. I just still think he's got so much to give and to bring and to bring more out of his game. So, yeah, 70 million, something like that, I think would be a price that I'd maybe entertain discussions on, not necessarily even sell at that point. So it'd take big, big money for me.
Yeah, of course, like you say, he's got so much to give. He's still quite young, only 24 years old,
Yeah.
so still, a lot of potential there. And
Oh,
his contract,
just quickly on
yeah,
that. A lot, and I like the idea of Rodrigo coming to Arsenal. I think that would be a good signing. But the last game for Brazil, Martinelli started ahead of Rodrigo for Brazil, and which again says an awful lot. There, we've got a player who's starting ahead of the rumored Arsenal target for his national team. So, I just think he's underrated, Martinelli. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, especially like you say, what he just brings to the team, not just as goals and assists, but what he actually brings defensively and just how much you can see. He just looks like a kid who loves to play football, Gabriel
Mm.
Martinelli. And that contract situation that we just mentioned, he could become a free agent in 2 years' time, but you'd expect Arsenal would trigger that extension. His situation has been, mentioned. There's been reports of talks, nothing really concrete. It will need looking at in the next sort of 1 or 2 years, of course, if he does stay. But there is that scenario that, a Rodrigo or Rafael Leao could come in, really hit the ground running. Martinelli maybe doesn't start as many games as he is now. And if he doesn't get those assurances over that game time, that might be a bit of a sticking point in contract talks. So is this an exit that you could maybe see happening in sort of 1 or 2 years if he slides down the pecking order? Or do you think he is just Arsenal through and through and will stay regardless if he's a regular starter or not?
No, I'm sure he'll want to be a regular starter. So it would be something maybe see in a year's time, depending on what happens with whoever comes in this summer and how he performs. If he absolutely gets ahead of Martinelli in the pecking order and Martinelli struggles for minutes, then obviously, understandably, then a year's time, maybe you look at it and see what's happening there. But certainly not this summer. It'd be far too early for me.